Liminal spaces, constructs defined as a physical threshold between one destination and the next, have captured the imagination of internet users in recent history. These transient spaces, filled with an abstract familiarity and a desolate isolation, have filled forums, social media circles, and spawned countless videos, images, interactive games, and theoretical frameworks since their rise to the public's attention. Why these spaces have attracted our attention have been the subject for debate and theorizing for the last 2 years, as the internet dove into the communal creative expression that has been presented in several forms, most prominently, the Backrooms. In order to best understand the internet's attraction to, and the cultural impact of, the desolate and unending backrooms and liminal spaces, we must first understand our collective walk into these abstract thresholds. The term liminal itself is derived from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold, a space existing in transience to another space. In architecture, liminal spaces are defined as a physical area between one destination and the next. Hallways, airports, empty streets, isolated pools, bare passageways, all of these included in architectural liminal space. However, the idea of liminality has morphed into a more surreal artistic concept, exposing a subjective glitched reality that can feel all too familiar and all too unnerving. It is in this surreal interpretation of liminality that the internet has found their fascination. Correct, yet incorrect. Real, yet unreal. Existing, yet impossible. Many attribute these emotions to a sense of familiarity in these photos, as if the viewer has been to this location before, either in real life in some far-off memory, or deep within a forgotten dream, just now rising to the surface of their consciousness. To summarize, viewers have a strong sense of nostalgia for an era come and gone. It is no surprise many of these popular liminal spaces have a late 90s, early 2000s aesthetic to them, pulling memories from the childhoods of millennials and older Gen Zs. Remembrance in these way stations, white tile rooms, pools with unique architecture, empty malls and arcades, hollowed-out stores, old colorful carpets and designs, repeating geometry. This denotes another aspect of liminal spaces in the modern artistic interpretation, the element of the uncanny, that pressing uneasiness when staring at a photograph, knowing that something within it is off. The components of the image are correct, but their configuration, their settings seem all too wrong. Perhaps it is an external wall with a roof above it, a mall devoid of all life, or a room that never seems to end, trapped in the transient space between the waking and the dreaming mind. The liminal space aesthetic often overlaps with adjacent artistic movements and aesthetics that play on similar nostalgic and uncanny reactions. Liminal spaces heavily overlap with the after-hours artistic movement, playing on key motifs of darkness, emptiness, familiarity, and uneasiness. These images often show a setting at night that is typically populated during daytime, or an empty or abandoned structure at night. After Hours goes beyond physical limits, however. It can even extend to empty game servers, long abandoned forums and websites, and inactive blogs. In an auditory and composition sense, the closest adjacent for the liminal space is the hauntology genre of music. Hauntology, a portmanteau of haunting and ontology, began as a philosophical framework that encompasses a range of ideas referring to the return to elements from the social or cultural past, as an echo, a reverberation of our collective memory. This philosophical approach extends into this loosely defined genre of music, with the music attempting to evoke cultural memories, utilizing the aesthetics of the past. The most notable example in recent history, and is often associated with liminal spaces, is the cultural phenomenon of Everywhere at the End of Time, a vinyl entry in a long-running project by composer Leyland Kirby, under the alias of The Caretaker. These surreal liminal spaces have been present in artwork, in manga and comic books, in video games, and in media for quite some time. Liminal artwork often falls into the category of surrealism, an artistic cultural movement sprouting in the aftermath of World War I. Early surrealist artists, such as Salvador Dali and Giorgio de Chirico, experimented with liminality in their artwork. Take de Chirico's The Red Tower, a lone red building standing in a vast emptiness, save for a few buildings to either side, a stark loneliness, a familiarity basking in a strange incorrectness. In more contemporary works, artists Ferdinanda Florence and Jared Pike openly experiment with liminality and empty spaces in many of their works. In her About section of her website, Florence writes, "In both my art and my teaching, I am interested in the concept of liminal threshold spaces and how slippery spatial boundaries can speak metaphorically." Untitled, Red Chimney, Sunset No. 7, Waterman No. 8, Waterman No. 9, and several more expand upon this concept of liminality in her traditional artwork. Pike's website drops us into 4 animated loops, each featuring a white-tiled aquatic center with the text, "Jared Pike is a New York City-based designer and artist who creates imaginary liminal interiors and dreamscapes. His artwork truly expresses the purest form of modern liminality the internet has come to know and love. Architecture so surreal and practical for such a place. Winding corridors, spiral staircases, angled walls, and pools leading into oblivion, bridging the gap between liminal spaces and thalassophobia." Tsutomu Nihei's Blame, a science fiction manga published in the Seinen Manga magazine, Monthly Afternoon, from 1997 to 2003, heavily relies on the concept of liminal spaces in the desolate artwork. The story itself follows Killy, a young teen possessing the powerful gravitational beam emitter, as he travels across the barren liminal landscape known as the City. His journey is spurred by desire to find what is known as the net terminal gene, which had allowed previous generations of humans to access the net sphere. However, once a virus ravaged a species, humans lost their ability to access the net sphere, and in turn, the control system for the City, allowing the silicon creatures to build and spread with no checks and no balances. Nihei captures the stark emptiness of the liminal space in striking detail. Large, sprawling landscapes of mechanical and artificial nothingness, of architecture that is equal parts uncanny and nonsensical, familiar yet all too strange and impractical. Liminality is also frequently used in horror and horror-adjacent film and television genres. Directors and creators often use these unnerving spaces to drive feelings of discomfort and uneasiness from their viewers, and to build an atmosphere of dread and foreboding in the uncanny environments. Let's take 2019's Vivarium, directed by Lorcan Finnegan and starring Imogen Poots and Jesse Eisenberg. The film itself follows our 2 actors as they enter into a labyrinth-like urban development in search of a house to buy. However, once inside, the pair cannot leave. Finnegan expertly uses space and repetition to evoke a sense of discomfort in the viewer, especially as Eisenberg's character, Tom, climbs upon a roof to view an unending sprawl of houses that stretch far into the horizon. In this instance, Finnegan uses the familiar suburban structure and sets it on an infinite loop, creating a surreal and liminal space the 2 characters may never escape from. Season 2 of Nick Antosca's Channel Zero, entitled The No-End House, plays on similar tropes and repetitions. Based upon the creepypasta of the same name by Brian Russell, The No-End House follows a group of teens as they enter into a house that has no end. Even as they exit, the group finds themselves trapped in a desolate iteration of their own suburban neighborhood. Nick Antosca deploys a similar methodology when it comes to No-End House's liminality, an overlap with the after-hours aesthetic, a dark and enclosed repeating space with no escape, empty streets, empty houses, and empty memories. The movement to liminality has been present in video games for quite some time, but has experienced a recent resurgence in indie horror and horror-adjacent games. The most popular game in recent liminal history is Animoiopolis. It is described as a short, atmospheric terror game about liminal spaces. Escape the grasp of an underground neighborhood that is equal parts comforting and disturbing. If you'd explored a dead mall, a foreclosed pool, or a school at night, you might already know what it's like to be in Animoiopolis. The player character explores a sprawling and seemingly nonsensical underground structure, isolated and silent, save for the soft sounds of a never-expanding pool. Artistically speaking, the design of the game pulls heavily from popular liminal space photographs and artwork found online. The aquatic section of the game appears inspired by the works of Pike mentioned previously. Due to the game still being in development as of the release of this video, more aspects of liminal spaces and the After Dark's aesthetic will most likely be featured in future chapters. Let's shift to the social media side of liminal space. Liminality has had a profound impact on the horror and mystery side of social media and content creation for the last 2 or so years. Artists such as the previously mentioned Pike, Jackery Winston, and many more have participated in contributing CGI artworks to the ever-expanding visual medium. On Twitter, a bot has been created that regularly posts liminal space photographs, CGI images, and pieces of artwork found online, along with other artists and individuals, giving their interpretation of liminal spaces and the backrooms. Spaces such as TikTok allow for the sharing of liminal space videos and creations, and backrooms-related content. On other platforms, such as YouTube, many videos have been created surrounding the liminal space medium, particularly videos focusing on its sudden rise to popularity, why certain emotions are expressed in the images and pieces of art, and why people are so pulled towards this artistic movement. Most typically, these videos focus on the catalyst for the modern liminal movement, the backrooms. On May 12, 2019, an anonymous user posted an image to 4chan with text asking users to post disquieting images that just feel off. 2 days later, another user reposted the same image with a new text accompanying it, writing, "If you're not careful and you no clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of the mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights and maximum humbuzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you." In true creepypasta fashion, the concept began to gain traction in horror circles and among content creators. Given the anonymous posting nature, the vague lore given, and the public domain aspect of the concept, many users began to participate in the building of the lore surrounding this liminal horrorscape, similar to the creation of the Slenderman mythos around a decade prior. Flash fiction quickly arose surrounding the collaborative project, with many authors contributing shorter to longer works of fiction detailing experiences within the backrooms. Many new elements began to emerge, many videos began to be posted, and many content creators gradually became involved in the Backrooms collaborative project. What are the backrooms? The primary question that has been burning within the minds of backroom fans is difficult to answer. Many theories and proposals have been heard, accepted, and rejected in the communal discourse of lore creation. Given the multiple lores being accepted into the backrooms mythos, many different answers could be accepted as the true purpose of the backrooms. The commonly accepted answer to where the backrooms are is as followed. The backrooms is an area just outside of our reality, where glitches in the fabric of space-time can cause reality to tear, even if for a moment, and can cause us to clip through these boundaries and into this liminal space. As for the what, let's start with the basics. Typically, the backrooms are depicted as previously mentioned. Nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights and maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in, like the hallways of an old motel, stretching on infinitely. This answers the physical question of what the space is, but less of the purpose portion. One line of reasoning depicts the backrooms as a debug room, to better match with the video game motif. A testing station for reality itself, containing patterns and repetitions, familiar spaces and unusual configurations, repeating endlessly. Perhaps the purpose is to hold assets for the world around us. Perhaps it is a testing area in the framework of reality. Or perhaps it is something else entirely. All that we truly know is that once a person finds themselves trapped within this liminal space, time and space itself, safety and danger, twist and turn in these labyrinth-like spaces as unwitting victims struggle to find their way out. Still, others see the backrooms in a more liminal sense. pointing towards the liminal aspect of the space. These individuals see the backrooms as a transient plane, one that bridges the gap from one dimension into the next, as a kind of threshold between worlds. Inside this border dimension, entities hypothetically exist to prevent individuals from traversing from one destination to the next, a kind of antibody that erases any foreign entities. However, the true purpose of the backrooms, or even lack of purpose, is entirely up to interpretation and speculation. Some lore mention the possibility of escape. Certain iterations of stories have protagonists falling through the floor in a similar fashion to their arrival and winding up back in the, quote, overworld. Other interpretations have off-colored, darkened, or rippling walls that signal a passageway back to reality, to the start of the space, or to a new dimension altogether. These so-called no-clip zones offer a dangerous gambit. Go home, go back to the start, or end up in a place even worse than where you are now. Across the different iterations and mythologies surrounding the backrooms, one common factor sticks out among the vast majority: backroom entities. As mentioned in the original Backrooms lore post on 4chan, at least one entity lurks within the endless walls of the liminal space. Entities appear to be unique to each individual story, with each content creator, author, director, and so on bringing a new creature to the table in their own self-contained stories. A shifting piece of cloth, a twisted and deformed creature, an entity just out of sight. Each brings a new horrific nightmare to the viewers and readers ingesting these cosmic tales. Most commonly, however, these entities fall within the hound category, twisted and deformed creatures that vaguely resemble something humanoid that stalk the repeating labyrinth. Along with these entities, different mythologies have expanded upon the complex layers of the backrooms. Some interpretations have the repeating textures of the walls give way to other environments for an individual to explore, rather than having multiple distinct levels. Other iterations, however, have distinct, tiered interpretations to the backrooms, typically called levels. Commonly called the levels theory, these floors add an element of danger to each subsequent level of the backrooms, with the initial staging area being level 0 most typically. The exact amount of levels differ from mythology to mythology. Most typically, the backrooms contain only 3 distinct levels, but others claim upwards of 10, still more upwards into the thousands, and others claiming the levels descend infinitely. The 3 levels hypothesis is commonly accepted as the, quote, true depth of the backrooms. Each subsequent level becomes more hazardous and dangerous the further a person descends. Level 0 is again considered the repeating wall zone. If a person continues wandering, they may find either a staircase to gain access to level 1, or if a person continues walking indefinitely in level 0, may find the carpet replaced by concrete as level 1 begins.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Different creators have different interpretations of level 1, creating a unique experience for each individual story. Some may have large, cavernous spaces filled with static proto-people, and others may have more industrial repeating areas. And still others may have cast away repetition entirely for unique and expansive environments. No matter the differences in visual aesthetics, level 1 is consistently a more dangerous and hazardous zone. Level 2 appears to be rarely seen within visual and written stories, usually popping up in rumors and reports given by other people. Many interpretations paint level 2 as long, narrow corridors that stretch on indefinitely, while others give the level a more industrial-like appearance. As stated, the 3 levels theory seems to be the commonly accepted theory to the depth of the backrooms, but no one interpretation of appearance or function exists. Some include creatures and entities to a greater degree, while others focus more on the surreal and liminal environments to instill a feeling of unease within the viewer or reader. And even still, some interpretations, especially found in wikis and forum posts, claim the backrooms extend infinitely downwards, encompassing a wide swath of environments and biomes in each subsequent level. Whichever interpretation you choose to subscribe to is entirely up to you. It is this open-ended mythos that has allowed many horror enthusiasts to engage with the community and the collaborative project. Many choose to create their own stories and mythos to build from the minimalist lore through any number of means, through written stories, through images and artwork, through videos, and even through interactive video games. Each of these methods has helped to spread the undeniable influence of the Backrooms and Liminal Spaces to the furthest reaches of the internet. Even those not directly involved with or interested in the Backrooms have at least heard of the concept mentioned in passing. And it is through this multimedia approach that the Backrooms has truly come alive. The Backrooms began as a single image posted to 4chan, so it is only natural that the Backrooms began to spread through images and flash fiction connected to said images. Authors and writers began to contribute to the constantly expanding lore by creating works of fiction. And just 4 days after the Backrooms conceptual flash fiction was posted, Your D&D Guy posted one of the first major Backrooms creepypastas, the r/NoSleep subreddit. All around, the story itself is fairly short, clocking in at a little over 650 words. The plot centers around an unnamed protagonist who finds themselves no-clipping into the Backrooms, unable to find a way out and hearing the sounds of footsteps slowly approaching. This story spread around the internet for a time in 2019, becoming a popular work of fiction in the Backrooms lore and became a point of inspiration for future authors and content creators. If you've been on the horror side of YouTube any time in recent history, you've no doubt seen the incredible pieces of analog horror created by Kane Pixels. His Backrooms series, spanning several videos by this point, has exploded in popularity, giving the Backrooms a resurgence of popularity and inspiring many other content creators to try their hand at creating Backrooms and Liminal Space-inspired content. However, even before the sudden rise of Kane Pixels' The Backrooms series, other creators gave an in-depth look at the unending expanses of the Liminal Space. Let's start with a little-known Backrooms project. Alexander Darling, the primary creator for the AVGFilms YouTube channel, released Backrooms on September 4th, 2019, as a low-budget, high-vision experimental film. The short film clocks in at just under 10 minutes and follows lonely teen Nate, who is shaken by the events of his past and becomes nervous on his first day at university. Within the walls of the school house his darkest fears. While not necessarily written as a straightforward depiction of the Backrooms, Darling attempts to instill the same repeating liminal space described within the short stories and images posted online given the limited budget of the project. The project also brings to light a persistent issue in Backrooms-related content, how to effectively and convincingly recreate the Backrooms. Unlike other collaborative projects, such as the Slenderman mythos, the average creator may not have the tools or skills to create video content relating to the lore. With Slenderman, for instance, all that is typically needed is a Slenderman-style suit, a halfway decent plot, visual distortions that most editing software include, any local forested area, and a dash of visual effects if the creator is so inclined. But where do you go to find your local Backrooms-esque environment? How do you effectively recreate the Backrooms environment in live-action short films? The simple answer? You don't. Evan Royalty, most notable for his creation of SCP animatics using GTA 5 and SCP live-action short films, uploaded a Backrooms-themed video entitled Into the Backrooms on October 26, 2019. Utilizing the aforementioned GTA 5 engine, the video gave Backrooms fans their first animated glimpse into the elusive space. The video follows the body cam perspective of a local police officer by the name of Richmond as he investigates an abandoned property. During said investigation, Richmond clips and falls into the depths of the Backrooms. The majority of the video follows this lone officer as he traverses the endless expanses and horrifying realities of the Backrooms, desperately searching for a way home as he avoids the unimaginable monstrosities waiting around each sharp corner. Royalty's horrifying interpretation of the Backrooms gave inspiration for many artists and content creators, becoming, for a time, the definitive Backrooms visual experience outside of any associated video games. As of the making of this video, Evan Royalty's Into the Backrooms has garnered nearly 2.4 million views. The effective use of a modded GTA 5 environment allowed for a stunning and accurate recreation of the Backrooms environment, where live action tended to fall short. This method of using digital environments began to expand into more realistic and manipulative programs, such as Blender and other rendering programs, in the months and years to come. Enter Dinnerbone777. Spanning the last year and a half, Dinnerbones 777 has effectively recreated a series of short and effective Backrooms videos, utilizing render software and visual effects to achieve a fairly realistic-looking Backrooms environment. The series features a number of video logs belonging to an individual exploring the Backrooms. The first video, posted on July 22nd of 2020, is a quick 14 seconds long. The subsequent videos all follow the same format. The lone camera operator exploring the various aspects of the Backrooms, from ambience and aesthetic to the shifting environments, until the video ends. For the vast majority of these videos, the content is more comical and mysterious in nature. However, their latest upload leans into the more horror-esque aspects of the Backrooms. On January 7th, 2022, the Backrooms received a powerful resurgence in the form of Kane Pixels, the Backrooms analog horror series. Utilizing fantastic renders and a blend of live-action and CGI elements, Kane Pixels blurs the boundaries between fiction and reality in its groundbreaking series. Pixels deploys blurry and graining imagery, as if shot on film camcorders and in low quality, allowing imperfections and the unreal aspect of CGI elements to blend seamlessly with the real world and practical elements, however few there may be. As of the creation of this video, this series has 7 public videos and some unlisted as well. The first video, simply titled "The Backrooms Found Footage," shows us just that. An unfortunate soul who clips through the threshold of reality and falls into the Backrooms. Through his eyes, we witness the horrors of the repeating hallways and labyrinth-like structures, as well as the entities living within the endless maze. The second entry, an unlisted video, gives viewers a look into a slideshow of images relating to a fictional organization known as Async, as it experiments and researches the Backrooms, including photographs of the Backrooms, of liminal spaces, and of the researchers and scientists working on this project. The third video, entitled "Third Test," has an artificial voice narrating the efforts of the fictional organization as it attempts at opening a gateway into this liminal dimension. Ultimately, the attempt at opening a gateway fails. In the next entry, taking place on October 17th, 1989, the organization successfully opens a gateway into the Backrooms, one that appears stuck open and unable to be closed. Uploaded on the same day, a fifth video details the resulting collateral destruction from the violent opening of the gateway into the Backrooms plane, utilizing real-world earthquake footage from the San Francisco area to heighten the realism of the series. On a similar note, the next entry, Video 6, details the continuing repercussions of the tearing of dimensions. A series of missing persons posters and an infographic shows a sudden spike in missing persons around the time that the doorway into the Backrooms was opened. It appears that the ripping into the Backrooms has created instabilities in the world around, causing more instances of individuals clipping into the Backrooms. The ensuing video appears to show the end results of one of these missing persons.
This makes no sense. This wasn't in the last report? No, this is definitely new.
Video 7 reveals a lot of lore and information needed to better understand the video series. Stylized as an internal informational video, we come to find out the experiments and exploration of the Backrooms is known as Project KV-31. KP31 refers to the study and development of Async's low-proximity magnetic distortion system, the technology responsible for opening a threshold into the backrooms, or as Async calls it, the complex.
Yeah, but that was 2 weeks ago. I'm not doing anything about it now.
As the video continues, we learn more about the backrooms themselves, as well as the protocols that researchers at Async must follow, lest the expedition take a turn for the worst.
Guys? George? Hello? Hey!
The 8th video, acting as a continuation of the missing persons video, dives into the autopsy of the corpse found within the backrooms. As a scientist performs the autopsy, strange decay, anatomy, and fungus catches his attention.
It's like portions of the body stopped decaying and were sustained. Other areas, however, were completely overtaken by culture. So, I took a couple samples of some of the material here. At first, I thought it was an aggregated collection of Pseudomonas fluorescens, but it seems to be closer to a mutated strain of simple Hay bacillus, which it should be completely benign, but well, really, I don't know what to make of this.
Taking place on March 5th, 1990, Motion Detected details the scientific research and observation aspect of Async's ventures into the backrooms. A series of cameras have been arranged to record the viewable backrooms, recording strange audio, and eventually catching a glimpse of something in the distance. The prototype rounds out the series to this date. The video, taking place in 1982, shows the initial experiments into tearing holes in reality. And here the story ends, for now. The story itself feels inspired by Stranger Things, with a more scientific and research-focused point of view as Async dives into the many unknowns of the liminal space. The influence of Kane Pixels' Backrooms series has been far-reaching, helping to re-energize the waning interest in the backrooms and liminal spaces. Since the posting of Pixels' Backrooms series, many other content creators have tried their hand at replicating the same aesthetic and atmosphere of the backrooms. In the description of many of these spin-off videos, viewers will find comments such as, inspired by Kane Pixels, each utilizing a similar story and technique, but each bringing a unique spin and perspective to the table. list goes on and on and on. I might as well make a backroom playlist for you all to enjoy. I did, so here you go. Click the link down below to watch an anthology playlist that attempts to organize in chronological order. This has even led to the creation of other Liminal Space inspired videos, such as one video created by the aforementioned Jared Pike that creates the dream pools, or the pool rooms as they come to be known, in stunning analog fashion. Since the creation of the Backrooms, many Backrooms-inspired video games have hit the market. Indie game publishing websites, Steam, and other resources have been flooded with an influx of Backrooms-related content ever since its inception back in 2019. While remaining fairly similar in approach and content across the board, each iteration brings new mechanics, entities, environments, and engines to explore within. The most notable iterations, such as Lost in the Backrooms, Enter the Backrooms, and the Backrooms of Reality appear to be consistently the most popular Backrooms games, with multiple videos and playthroughs having been posted since their publishing dates. Along with the rise of Backrooms-related video games and interactive media, the internet has flocked to the idea of liminality within other video games and topics as well. Of course, the idea of liminality has been present in popular video games since the rise of three-dimensional titles in the 1990s. Plenty of older, more political titles have an eerie sense of liminality, whether intentional or not, by this day and age. LSD, Dream Emulator, Silent Hill, and many older titles contain this distinct aspect of modern liminality through elements of nostalgia, abandonment, and familiarity bathed in impracticality. In more recent titles, the concept of liminality has been used with more intentionality. These games rely on the unsettling atmosphere that liminality brings in order to create a heightened sense of unease as the player progresses through the story or location. The Stanley Parable, for instance, a game that is more comedic and puzzle-based in nature, uses liminality to heighten the isolation and abandonment that Stanley feels in this setting. Generic hallways and office spaces, white walls and yellow carpets, a feeling of completion alongside a feeling of transience, of in progress, of an unfinished world, of existing in a threshold between the player and the creator. More puzzle-heavy liminal titles include games such as Superliminal. You take the control of a character tasked with solving abstract puzzles that defy the law of physics and geometry, remaining non-Euclidean as the game progresses towards a rather unusual ending. This title again relies on an uncomfortable familiarity, along with a stark abandonment typically accompanying liminal spaces. Hotel lobbies, long corridors, open spaces, and seemingly supernatural occurrences fill the game's environment. Even more AAA titles, like Remedy Entertainment's 2019 action-adventure title, Control. You take control of Jessie Faden as she enters into the labyrinth-like maze that is the Federal Bureau of Control's home office, an ancient and cosmic building known as the Oldest House that shifts and transforms. The Brutalist building itself creates liminal environments that the player may explore, along with an extra-dimensional area known as the Astral Plane that allows the newly appointed FBC Director Faden to communicate with the cosmic force known as the Board. Heavily inspired by paranormal stories, creepypastas, and the SCP Foundation, Control utilizes these viral sensations, including liminal spaces, to craft a game that feeds on a strange sense of familiarity amidst the abstract madness the story provides. The modern concept of liminal spaces have taken the internet and pop culture by storm over the last 3 years. While the concept has been around for far longer, the modern internet interpretation ensnares an element of the uncanny and nostalgic, and crafts a truly unique and unsettling environment that's captured the imagination and curiosity of millions of internet users as they dive into the rabbit hole. In the summer of 2019, the highly influential Backrooms began, spawning dozens of community-created mythologies surrounding the single image and simplistic lore. This influence waned over time, but with the introduction of Kane Pixels' amazingly executed The Backrooms Anthology Horror Series, the concept saw a sudden and dramatic revival, with many creators trying their hand at the new methods of storytelling. Along with the rise of the Backrooms, other prominent liminal space concepts have arisen as well, including the first chapter of the indie game Anemoiopolis, that poise heavily from the rising waters of the pool rooms, created by Jared Pike. While Pixels' series is still in progress, many fans are anxiously awaiting the next entry. As we enter into a new era of liminal media, I only have one question. Doesn't it feel like you've been here before?